I feel like we are at a really, and I don't know if it's just because I'm in it. I'm in this community. I'm a content creator, but I don't know if you're feeling the same. Just from following all of this for so many years, these channels and this community and this content, I feel like we're at a cornerstone, or we're at a massive milestone, where, uh, as you can tell with the tariffs and the urging of interest rate cuts by Trump, that with his first presidency and the open banking and the AI, that he's really trying to push hyperinflation and an economic crisis to get us into a digital economy, for the globalist agenda, for the Anglo-American establishment and its imperial policy. So we've got that, but we've got the community, either, hiding the truth of that, and its obvious connections with the British and the royal family, and we've also got the hiding of the monarchy being liable for the orchestration of the Megxit narrative, Meghan Markle as a PR construct, all of it. You can now see actual, like, transparent and overt intent of steering the public. As soon as I started exposing As Ever and Royal Rota come out with articles to try to cover it and mitigate the risk, as soon as that happened, people just didn't receive their items anymore, that they were they were trying to tell you were legitimate. And then they've tried to, they've got the Sussex squaddies or whatever to try to tell you, try to still legitimize the products and the business. And then you've got the Megxit community changing it up and going to a court case to, I don't even know how to say it, preeclampsia. Is that how you say it? Or Clemsia? Meghan Markle's podcast with fake diagnoses. And then you've got, I even saw today, how William, I think it was William or Harry, urged King Charles not to marry Camilla. I mean, that's like 20 years old at this point. They're so desperate, and you can see it. It's just so intentional and so obvious. No, I have had no other YouTube account repost As Ever, the As Ever exposure, as fraudulent. And that's pretty revealing, because before I came into the picture with researching As Ever, that was the front page of everything. Only days ago, only a week ago, literally a week ago, it was all about As Ever and the cooking show. And now there's new stuff to still keep this narrative alive, to keep baiting you with shit, and to not make the monarchy liable and responsible, which they are, as I've said, with having any commercial enterprise under the monarchy, under the family, royal family with titles. That's just a breach of the constitutional agreement of British Parliament with the monarchy, and being a constitutional monarchy. That's then also a breach of the monarchy, the constitutional monarchy, and their role with the Commonwealth, which also includes America. So there's just so many things that are coming to light, and all the while you've got Trump trying to get us into a manufactured, artificial, but also harms us very, very, very realistically, into an absolute crisis where we are forced to get into digital banking. There's no question about it. You would just have to know how economics works, which in my video exposing the lot, I explained to you how inflation works and what happened in March 2020 to get us into inflation with all the central banks, which is led by the Bank of England and the City of London. That's as simple as that. And what I want to talk to you about today is just how the community is running at this point and how I'm seeing things and bringing things together. I've done a short video here on why tax exists, and I'm talking about global tax. You can do your own reading regarding the tax that they tried to impose on the American colony during the Revolution, and then later they had a number of taxes: tea tax, stamp tax. And then they also tried to put through an income tax, but that's been erased from history. But the first year of during the first only months after the start of the war, they had put through an income tax, but they didn't make it mandatory, and so it was like a bit of a they had to reconfigure it legally, and it took about 30 years later for it to become mandatory and applicable to all genders and people and the proletariat. But 30 years later, maybe a bit longer. Maybe I've got that wrong. Possible. I'm just going off what I'm trying to remember with what I researched. Yeah, it must be more than 30 years. That's a long time, maybe 130. Anyway. Income tax and wealth tax used to just be only about war and war repatriations, and that was what was the excuse. The issue being it was mostly about Britain going to war with France and America having to pay for repatriations, and then they tried to blame the current war against they tried to blame the American war to get repatriations, and this must have been look, I can't remember exactly when. Anyway, it used to be the excuse was repatriations. Didn't make particularly any sense. It was just the king wanting to tax the colonies and trying to figure out a way to tax the colonies, because just prior to that they were imposing taxes on kind of deals and agreements, like when I think it was Naples, Austria, and Russia creating the Confederacy to battle against France. They were then given an income tax, I think, to pay back Britain for creating that, for forming that. And so they were just trying to make that more about how can we pay our debts, how can we build our defenses and build the empire by taxing the colonies, and also maintaining the actual colonies as well. I mean, who knows exactly to what proportion or what ratio that was, that were actually the money was keeping in America, for example, versus back to Britain. That is above my pay grade, but very, very interesting stuff. Anyway, so this is just a short video explaining the Exchequer, which was the Royal Court for Revenue, and it still exists today. and that is they manage they are the Imperial Treasury. So they ensure tax, and they ensure highway tax and so forth. They manage the empire's finances. So there's a short video there. The stuff I wanted to kind of get at is I was questioning with the whole both with the as ever kind of exposure with, unfortunately, Brittany. I haven't known her work prior. I didn't even know she had a YouTube account or a YouTube channel. And I didn't know that she had been around for so long. Probably I had, seen her work, but it wasn't noteworthy, obviously, because it was so, how do you say, branded, royalist branded. Even when I didn't feel betrayed by my monarchy, that didn't kind of really attract me, that sort of, I guess, idolization of the monarchy, because it just feels tainted and biased. So I just, maybe I've seen her work every now and then. I know I saw the picture of her with Catherine before, but I didn't pay much attention to it. That's how I just thought she had a social media account. But this stuff with As Ever, and the fact that she's still trying to convince people that she purchased these items and that she's going to receive them, even though it's been a week since she hasn't received them, and she paid for 2-day delivery supposedly. And then initially she was trying to say that it was really bad on Meghan's reputation, the fact that she didn't receive the products during the weekend for the 2-day delivery. But she had also screenshot the shipping disclaimer stipulating that delivery would only be Monday to Friday, even with a 2-day delivery. So there were things that didn't add up. I have asked her for the distribution address. She didn't provide it to me. I have said to her that she's deceived the public. She hasn't responded. If I am wrong, please prove it. I mean, I'm more than open to apologizing, being wrong, but there hasn't been anything. And that really just made me wonder, who the hell is she, and what sort of content has she been kind of driving? It's just a very interesting kind of perspective when everything seems to be conspiracy, when truth seems to be conspiracy. And that's really quite dangerous in terms of how you steer the community, because then everyone who actually exposes anything and makes the monarchy liable, or not even makes the monarchy liable, just questions the narrative, and then I'm guessing people have space for questioning the monarchy's involvement, because that's the way it goes, right? That's just natural. She's intentionally put that through as conspiracy, and conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theorists. And I didn't know that, but my little following, when I was talking about Brittany and the delivery, people kept saying that she had supported that any claims of fake children are conspiracy. That's what I was told anyway, and that she believes there were natural pregnancies. But of course she would, But I just wanted to know her motive a little bit more. And when I tried to look at her work by searching through the Twitter search engine, which I did find throughout, like even up in 2022, I could see her work, and I could understand that there's clear agenda there. I also received or also saw that there were posts, I think from squatties, that had talked about Brittany being a policy analyst and having a background in foreign policy and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's really, really interesting, because if it's foreign policy and if British policy is involved, or if she's discussed British policy, then I'm firstly surprised that she wouldn't be advocating against the monarchy and their policies. For example, the climate change kind of policies, and well, depending on which side she's on or like politically, but foreign policy, I would expect you to understand the policies that are being implemented even by Trump. And yet this account with the content didn't add up and didn't match what I was reading, because it was these things are a little bit delusional and biased, and just all based on liking a brand of a family and an idolization. And for someone so intelligent and someone so savvy and so aware, it didn't match up. And I think the thing that actually got me was not just as ever, and I've just remembered this, but it was I saw, because I've been checking to see if she's had her products delivered, because I really wanted to see what she was going to say, and I also wanted to ask her for the label information, which maybe is the reason as to why she hasn't received her products yet. But I saw a post about her arguing against, I think, maybe it was possibly a British account, but arguing against basically the monarchy being irrelevant and costly to the British public. And she was talking about soft power, and she was talking about how that's soft power is just, soft diplomacy, and they're necessary diplomats, and it's foolish to consider them irrelevant, or to consider them not important or necessary in the system. One, I find that very alarming that an American who loves the whole pageantry of the royal families across the world is getting involved in that sort of discussion and that sort of positioning, but also the fact that it was incorrect and it was steering again, but in a political fashion. And especially, trying to steer the thought and the position, the public view of the monarchy and the royal family, globally within the Commonwealth, in Britain, actual direct subjects of the monarchy, and the fact that the monarchy or the monarch is these countries' head of state, like mine. To say something like that is quite careless, but intentionally careless. And so that was when I was wanting to see her background and to see the history of her posts. And I didn't even know that she was doing lives on this court case, by the way. That's just mental. It's just really, I find it obnoxious and just very, very telling, straight after you've pretended that you were receiving, as ever, a shell company's products that are also fraudulent. You're now doing a live at a court case, and you've travelled there to report on it. I don't know what sort of journalist or writer or reporter you are, and also a policy analyst. So, with that in mind, I think it's what's tying together with the as ever exposure and then Trump and the pushing of digital of Agenda 2030, which is just imperial or imperial restructure of the British Empire. That's clear. That's fact. That's not conspiracy. That's not me making stuff up. That's in strategies that have been published for since the 1900s. That's in the Rhodes Milner Group. That's in the Round Table. That's in the Pilgrim Society. That's in Chatham House. That's in Council on Foreign Relations. That is in all of the big names like Rothschild and J.P. Morgan and Churchill and all the lords and the aristocrats that were behind all of this, with all of the monarchs as well. It's, yeah, all this stuff is coming to light now and coming out and showing you everything on the surface if you're willing to see it. And it's really interesting to understand with that kind of hand in hand and in alignment, just how I'm seeing and viewing the community now with this sort of intentional steering, and just how long it's gone on for years. And Brittany is definitely an example of that. To be a foreign policy analyst for a think tank, John Locke, in North Carolina, and they're strongly affiliated with the Heritage Foundation, which was taken over by MI6 in the 1980s, and has been the foundation responsible for Thatcherizing, or I'm going to create a new term, Britanizing Reagan, and creating the North America Agreement and pushing that through from, well, Reagan really kind of started it with Mulroney, and then you had Clinton and Bush and Obama, and now Trump putting it through this whole Uni-Party. And then you have Trump, with the Heritage for his first and second presidency, running their policies, which are imperial policies, like open banking, which started in 2015 in the UK, and then it spread out to Australia, to Mexico. A bit later, it was actually put through with Trump. I think they had to wait for Trump to put it through with open banking and the CFPB. That was their whole direction and role. And, Brittany would be very well aware of this. And I'm surprised and a bit taken aback by just how strong the steering has been. And so I have discussed how, now that we know about the economic situation and the volatility and the cornering and the strategy of Trump, and there's a lot of accounts online that are open about this, we can now see how the accounts or the community works in steering, if you understand some of their background, or you understand their content. I've put here I gave the example of the Royal Grift lying to you, blaming the patsy Biden on the inflation situation and the crisis. But you actually have Brittany through John Locke blaming Biden for the inflation. we should be very well aware that it wasn't it wasn't under Biden that the central banking policy was implemented and executed in March 2020. That was Trump. And it's funny how things always tie back to politics and political agenda. And then you have, as I've said earlier, the account that claims to be working or have a job of protecting the monarchy and steering content for the Department of Justice, but I've also been told is a courtier or a royal attorney or lawyer looking into cases of Harry and so forth, but also protecting the crown in America. Just very, very strange. And she said that her colleague was or is Queer Lips of Truth, which is from what I know, a Twitter account. So it just ties in all together with the whole, like, you can see this is all playing out if you are, seeing how the community is working at the moment, distracting you with shit. You've got all around you, you've got accounts affiliated or connected to Political Agenda, especially in America, protecting the narrative and protecting the monarchy and also protecting Trump. It's a very strange situation. I have yet to see any of these accounts be both anti-Trump and just even anti-Trump. It's very, very interesting. These sorts of situations. And I think another point is how this can tie into the royal positioning and the steering. This is one fine example of Brittany being completely against the myth of climate change and talking about foreign policy, talking about climate change policy and what's happening around the world regarding climate change, dictating energy policy. But here she states, the government is there to serve the people, not bow to the whims of the environmental activists who would be willing to knock the country back to the Stone Age. If they believed it eliminated the mythical beast of climate change. John Locke is a conservative think tank. That's why it's connected and affiliated and awarded by Heritage Foundation, which is also a conservative think tank. So you can see how things are run like that. Brittany's also associated with, there's like some weird affiliation between John Locke and Billy Graham, who has now passed, but I think his son is Franklin Graham. He was an evangelical pastor, I think, and he's meant to be a spiritual leader to a lot of the presidents, and the presidents of the United States, and also a friend of the Queen, and would go visit the Queen in the UK often when he was alive. Very strange ties. But here is, Brittany also supporting and endorsing the Earthshot Prize because it's a part of the royal agenda and the royal family. And so you have this like conundrum where anything goes, where nothing is true, and it's all based on steering an agenda. And that's what I have a hard time with. Now, I think the last point I want to make is when I did talk about and tag, because I'm transparent, I tagged Queer Lips of the Truth, and I tagged Barrister Law, and I tagged Brittany, the Royal News Network, and I'm being transparent about this because this is me stating fact. This is not me stating anything that I'm reaching. There's no conspiracy here. I'm tying things together based on research, and how this community has been controlled and the content has been steered. And when that happened, Queer Lips then tried to gaslight me and smear me by calling me unstable, crazy, or whatever he wants to say. And then reposted it and asked if I was okay, which gave me the opportunity to post literally the proof that he's lying and now defaming and now alleging things that aren't true of me, while his colleague has actually given the testimonial of what I'm stating. I mean, it's just insane, the sort of smearing I get for stating things that are true that have been stated by other people. It's insane. So Queer Lips was my wingman for the summer. This is the Barrister Law, who's at Department of Justice or Royal Courtier Attorney, whatever the hell she is, who gets MI6 and courtier information. Queer Lips was my wingman for the summer. He does not remember me in any event. He told the courtiers this was an easy job with a legal background. How many times was he suspended? By the end of the summer, I had my respite and he learned this is hard work. I wanted someone else to help. I want a young, different perspective. I have no fear of an alternate voice, in brackets, like Queer Lips, nor anyone else from Buckingham Palace coming on here. What I do is what I do. I don't compare it except against anyone but myself. How can I do better? What can I improve? The rest is just noise. And the loudest person in the room is Markle. I don't understand that. You've just made yourself credible when you're bringing in a PR construct. Crazy. The quietest, King Charles. Okay. So this is just that's the whole agenda. Markle talks non-stop. King Charles learned to listen. You learn more. Righto. He told his father he did not understand how I could manage not to get my account suspended and do my job. His father thought it was a great summer project for him. His father and I went to Oxford together. I knew him when he was a little boy. I hope he comes back. I very much enjoyed What the Queen would have thought. I could hear her say, "Oh my." Well, remember when King Charles hired the constitutional expert from Oxford to be his private secretary for the first year? The legal courtier, who was my friend, went to Oxford with me. Queer Lips is now a lawyer. Starting to see a theme? Let me be clear, in no way, shape or form do I know UK law. I am not an expert. What I know a lot about is how UK laws apply to the monarch. But that's because I'd read books at the Queen's request on everything, royal protocol, the processes of your constitutional monarchy, and the role of the monarch and the limitations on their power. Never provide legal advice, but simply not to look like an idiot. But the thing is, there's nothing constitutional that's being discussed. It's all propaganda. And Meghan Markle is like such a trivial narrative and propaganda. I'm not understanding why. Well, I guess it's trying to legitimize it with some legal person from a legal background. So he stated that. Now, what was interesting for me is what's followed when he's reposted my post and tried to smear me. So I've asked him to take it down. I've asked him, now that I've proven that you've lied with your colleague's testimonial, please take this down because you're facilitating targeted harassment. And I'm going to show you the targeted harassment. Okay, so here we go. So I've shown I've shown all of those screenshots under this repost. I've reported the post because it's targeted harassment, and it's also hate through slurs and tropes. I'm just very over it at this point. I'm stating fact, and here you are trying to smear me. I mean, at this point, if I've already proven that you're incorrect and you keep this up and you keep this post up and you're not at all concerned about the risk or the responsibility or taking accountability for lying to people and lying even just through the repost and smearing me, of all people, who is stating a fact given by their supposed colleague. When that happens, I have to think there's another motive involved, because it doesn't make any sense. Oh yeah. So you get, you get all of this, the batshit crazy. I'm a lunatic. I'm either a lunatic or I'm a drunk. Oh, where is it? Here we go. So that was the screenshots I've also sent. People trying. But this is what I wanted to show you. I had someone block me and comment straight away. Very, very, very interesting. The sort of steering. Oh yeah, here. Well, definitely she is crazy or drunk because I don't have a clue what she is talking about. So she can't comprehend it. So therefore I'm crazy or I'm drunk. So it's not the fact that I'm wrong. It's that she can't comprehend it. Is he or she implying that the royal family is involved for Harry to get full security? Well, I don't think so. Ravak is absolutely and with precision saying that their decision was a legal right on. Okay. Thumbs up. I said to her that the security firm in itself is a shell company, a British shell company, and you haven't even seen the proof that I've provided because you have no idea. You're just steering. These people are just steering. But it's interesting to note the pattern and the intention. This is why I'm showing you this stuff. Oh, sorry, I have to keep putting this through. So our recollections vary has decided to add her steering in. So she's created a scenario that I've spoken to her. She said, I don't know history as well as her since I didn't know this and I didn't carefully study her work. No, I didn't. I haven't spoken to you. Our recollections may vary since I said you were insignificant in January the 9th, 2025. I have defended myself against your defamation. I have exposed your defamation and your fraud. And now you're just clearly showing the world, showing the community your intentions of steering. You've gone from saying that I'm a part of... So you are censoring my work. You're still looking at my work. You're still looking and trying to direct and redirect my intent and my research and saying that you're having these pretend conversations with me. And you're trying to get... I mean, the fact that you've jumped on this opportunity, which is very small, of a repost where I've proven this guy, this queer lips, as incorrect already, and you've come on here and you've lied again, and you're going to say you don't care because you're in power. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have more following than I do. All of this irrelevant stuff. But this is the intention of the steering. You've got this plus another account saying that I'm now saying that the royal family rather than the British Empire or the UK owns America or owns all the lands of America. That I've said that UK or the royal family created communism. They're trying to now intentionally, so they're looking at my work and my current work, and this had nothing to do with them prior, and this has nothing to do with anything, and they're using that to try to discredit me enough so you look the other way and you don't you aren't convinced that my work is, or the research is true and the facts are true. It's very, very, very interesting. Our recollections may vary, not so much, but she's too silly to understand that this is just really transparent. That's pretty much it. Lunatic, da 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 da. I mean, it's just very, very basic. Oh, here it is. She thinks the royal family rules every aspect of the world. You can't have communism with a monarchy. Okay. Do you see? These are statements. Both our recollections and this, or Nikki, whoever these real accounts are or their agenda are, they're creating new statements and falsehoods with and associating it and attaching it to my work. Now, you may think, why am I talking about this? Why am I wanting to indulge them? It's mostly about the fact that there's a simple thing as disagreement at this point. There's a simple thing as somebody focuses on an area that you don't agree with and you just don't think is, you don't agree with or you don't follow and you don't want any part of it. And there's a difference between that, of course, and lying. But when you disagree with somebody because of your own opinion and your ignorance and your bias and your agenda, then you can just simply disagree. But this is actually intentional steering, and it's all under a smearing repost. Now, even when you saw I can't even remember. ORMV's post. Whatever. That's here, isn't it? And has since the 1870s or something. And has since the 1870s or something. What the fuck are you talking about? You don't know your own history, but yet you are willing to state and accuse me of something. This is what I find interesting, is this whole, when you look at it from a certain way, and you're like, oh, like how this is the way the community is running at this point. And I want to be as transparent as possible about it. You've got the as ever exposure of it being a fraud, completely hidden away and discouraged. Now with all of these distractions, you've got accounts with very questionable backgrounds that are affiliated with the government, the US government, and think tanks and Political Agenda. You've got accounts falsely stating how censorship works, how economics works, how the policies that have been put in place, they have hidden a lot of the global policies. They're not discussing what's currently happening with Trump and the push for digital banking and the lowering of the urging to lower inflation rates, which would create more inflation, and the responsibility he should be holding. They're not discussing any of that. And then on top of it, they're trying to re-narrate my own content and trying with all of their might and energy and effort to discredit any theory, not theory, fact, or factual theory based on history and based on the monarchy and the British Empire and the Anglo-American establishment that is, through constitution, connected with one another. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that they're trying to deceive Americans and people that have lived under the monarchy all of their lives. These people have the audacity to try to tell me how the monarchy operates and how the British Empire operates, when Australia is the closest, or one of the closest, British arms of the British Empire there is, and has always been since the beginning. And you don't even know what year your history has happened, in the 1870s or whatever, and you don't care. You don't care, but you're wanting to deceive people and gaslight me and smear me, when all I've ever done is give facts that you can disagree with your delusional opinions, but that you can't even come back with. It's pretty funny. But I hope you can understand that this is the everything's coming together. Everything's tying together with the work of this narrative, the work with the political agenda of Agenda 2030, and the steering of this community. It's all tying together very, very nicely and becoming a lot more transparent. Thanks, guys.